Remember when Britain had a place in the world? Here's why it hasn't anymore. Last week started well, with Rishi throwing his toys out the pram like a petulant kid just because the Greek Prime Minister had the nerve to suggest that maybe we should return the Elgin marbles, or the Parthenon sculptures if they're actually yours, that we stole back in 1816. The argument is that we had permission to take them back then, but Lord Elgin, who we named them after, wasn't able to produce any documentation to prove it. He went on to sell them to the British government for £35,000. That's over 4 million in today's money, and they were entrusted to the British Museum. An early example of people with power ripping off the country. If you don't know what the British Museum is, it's basically our physical national database of the things we stole from other countries when our empire was pillaging its way across the globe. To be fair, the Greek press took it quite well and actually spoke for a lot of us, while the government-owned British press unsurprisingly reported Rishi being scared to face the Greek PM as a sign of strength. At the same time, Keir Starmer, in his capacity as Prime Minister in waiting, did meet the Greek PM and discuss things like migration, security, trade, obviously nowhere near important as some stones. And as if Rishi hadn't embarrassed us enough, he reluctantly went to the COP28 climate conference, hosted by an oil producing country and chaired by the owner of the national oil producer, in his private jet. In fact, he spent more time in his jet than at the conference. And he wasn't the only one in a private jet. Oh no, the Foreign Secretary David Cameron flew in a separate one, and so did the King. 3 fucking private jets to a climate conference. The King was, of course, there to continue his well-documented worry that the planet is in danger, and if we're not careful, nature depletion will mean there aren't any animals left to kill for sport. Britain, of course, is a world leader in climate change, with new licenses for oil and gas, a new coal mine, a slashing of the reduction measures, top of the list of priorities to keep the oil and gas industry happy. But it's not all bad news from COP. There has been an agreement to reduce methane emissions from oil production. But of course, not the oil production that scientists agree to need to end by 2050, which should coincide nicely with the planet being totally fucked. And to prove their dedication to reducing climate change, Saudi Arabia decided that while richer Western countries wean themselves off fossil fuels, they can artificially raise oil demand in Africa and Asia by supplying them with cheap cars, power station ships using heavy fuel oil to generate electricity. Makes so much more sense than harnessing that African free resource of sunshine. But then where's the profit in free? Rishi met Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who previously ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi back in October, to deepen economic ties, which is political speak for begging for cheap oil and negotiating arms sales. But there's a connection between Greece and Saudi Arabia, and coincidentally it's stones. Greece wants theirs back, Saudi Arabia used theirs to stone people to death. Shows Rishi's priorities. If you care about Britain's place in the world, but want to learn more about what it really is, why not subscribe now? It really helps small channels like this, and don't forget to turn on notifications.